But yeah, hey everyone, I'm Shreya. I'm back with the weekly Campfire show with our special guest today. Hi, Adrian. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really excited because next week we're actually starting the camp itself. So on Friday, tomorrow, we're going to have our student orientation and we're going to get a chance to see all of the students for the first time. Um, and then next week, we're going to start with our weekly live stream lectures. I believe Chloe's going to be joining us for those as well and teaching us as we go. You, as a mentor, are going to get a chance to meet your students next week as well, which is going to be
All
really
right.
exciting. And we have some really awesome workshops like personal branding, professional, like resume, LinkedIn workshops scheduled. We have this really cool social on next week, Saturday. We're going to have the students, the Bit Project staff, and the mentors all involved in one place. Have you used Kumo Space before?
I have for the first time May, so last month. I have no concept of time anymore, but we sponsored a hackathon, Toronto Hacks, and they used Kumo Space for like the sponsor booths, and it was really cool.
Yeah, it's so awesome. I was just like playing around with it by myself and like changing the furniture and stuff. It's so adorable. I threw like plants all over the entire room, but it's going to be a fun space where you can just casually meet the mentors, even if they're not directly assigned to you, and vice versa. And I'm just really excited to meet everyone and get started. So yeah, Adrian, you're one of our mentors, as we mentioned. Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you here?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Adrian Howard. I'm located in New York with my little puppy Atticus. So if you hear barking in the background, that is a tiny corgi who doesn't understand where the voices are coming from. I work for a company called Courier. I was like, we're in between taglines, but we make it. It's the fastest way to add notifications to your application. So if you want to send notifications using SMS, email, push, it's all one API, and we have a pretty great drag and drop, good experience. So it's a lot of fun to work with. But before being a developer advocate, I was a front end software engineer, and before that, I was at your traditional computer science college. In Indiana. And so I went through the 4 years. I got my bachelor's in computer science and yada, yada, yada. But I know Chloe Condon, and she introduced me to Daniel from Bit Project fame. He's probably out there waiting for me to say something like snarky. Yeah, I had a lot of fun watching Chloe interact with you for the last cohort. And I really kind of got my start in technology working in education. So teaching teachers, which is not always a fun thing to do. But I love the idea of being a mentor and excited to do it for this cohort.
Well, the first question that I have is Atticus is a very unique name. Where did you find that?
Yeah, so a lot of times people come up and ask that if it's from To Kill a Mockingbird, Atticus Finch. It is not. I love watching cartoons. So like Gravity Falls, Star versus the Forces of Evil. I could just name more and more and more. What was the one that I just got done watching? Amphibia. So they just released season 2 to Disney Plus. But there's another cartoon called Infinity Train, and it was on Cartoon Network. It's now available on HBO Max. Highly recommend it. They're like 10-minute episodes. You can watch the whole season in an hour. Great voice casting. But there is it's a series of cars, and there is a car that is the Corgi car, and it's the land of Corgonia, and the king of the Corgis was named Atticus, and so that's where I got the name. And his full name is Atticus Charles, and the Charles came from my grandfather because I thought he was born on his birthday. So
that is such a cute story. Oh my God, Atticus, the king, basically.
Yeah. What's interesting is so corgis are Welsh, and one of Atticus's siblings, his name is Marduk, which is Welsh for prince. So
That's so cool. Oh my gosh. I'm jealous. I wish if I had a puppy, I would definitely try to steal that name from you.
you know what? There's plenty of corgis named Atticus out there. Look it up on Instagram.
I could totally imagine your Instagram just be like a whole feed of like corgis, just one after the other.
My Instagram has turned into Atticus's Instagram, and everybody's like, you should make him his own. And I'm like, but then no one will look at mine.
So you're basically using him.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
That's what parents do with their children.
No shame right there. So it's very interesting because you mentioned that you started off in software engineering and then you kind of like diversified into DevRel. So what made you want to do that switch?
Yeah, so I did computer science, and it was a lot of theory. It did not teach you like to program in a language. It taught you to program in languages. But like I said, a lot of theory. There wasn't really like software engineering degrees back then. Like actually, the year that I graduated, they had their first software engineering degree program, but I was able to take a lot of software engineering courses, so I was a more software engineering heavy person. So there was kind of like that switch from like theoretical computer science that I hated, like building my own interpreters and compilers. I'm like, there are smarter people out there doing that. I was like, I want to use it. I was like, if you want me to use a bubble sort, like there's somebody out here who created the best one. Why do I feel like I need to create a better one? But like throughout, the jobs, I've always been more of like a customer facing software engineer. So we had the people in the companies that were working on the core product, and they like, never saw the light of day. They were like in their cubicle, very task oriented. And then you had me who was doing my tasks, but I was usually working with the clients, with the customers, integrating things and like working with them. So like one of my jobs early on, I was working with a set of web services that allowed us to do integrations with the core product. And so I got to go out to, I was basically building like web forms. So you can apply for a credit card or for a loan, but I got to go out to these individual banks and like work with them and figure out like what it is they needed. And we would build the thing, and we'd go back and forth with like their changes and everything. And so like, it was a lot of fun. Plus it got me to travel. So I've always been working with like, with people, and at my three jobs ago, I don't know, I was working at ExactTarget, which is now part of Salesforce. And part of my job, I ended up working with the developer advocates there, and I got to work with Ian Murdoch, which I still think is really cool. A lot of people might not know who he is, but if you've ever used Debian Linux, he was the Ian of Debian. So like he created Debian Linux. And so I got to work on some client libraries for the web services there. So like wrapper libraries that I've kind of been doing ever since. And I got to work with the developer advocates, and I kind of learned like that's a thing. And so it was, instead of working like with clients, you're working with developers. And I thought that was really cool because like communities of developers was really new to me. Y'all are so lucky today because you can go on the internet and like ask a question, and there's just all kinds of people, and most of them are nice. So whenever I left that job, one of the previous developer advocates, I was like, hey, do you know anybody who could use my skill set? And he's like, oh my God, me. And so I got my first developer advocate job at SparkPost. They moved me from Indiana to New York, which was a dream because like I always said that was my happy place. And so that's kind of how I transitioned. So I feel like it was like a more focused, like external facing developer role. So I'm not working on the core product now. I mean, at a startup, sometimes I do. I've integrated. So the reason that we have a Discord integration is because I did that as part of my hackathon project for Courier, and we ended up putting it into the core product. But then my first day, and any developer advocate or engineer on their first day, we try to get them to integrate a provider, so a new provider into the system. And so they get that like feeling of like, I put something into the code. And so like Plivo is a SMS provider that now works on Courier because of me.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, so I still get to be like a software engineer, but like there is an element of fun to it, but there's also like all the other things as well.
Yeah, and you still get to create, you still get to like make your own content, but just in a different type of way for a different audience. That's so
Yeah.
cool. I'm glad that you're like so vocal about this, because I feel like up until when you first start learning how to code, everything is just software engineering. Everyone's like, yeah, that's the way to go. That's all you're going to end up doing for the rest of your life. Either that or becoming a PM. And then suddenly you're like actually looking for jobs. You're like, what are all these crazy weird terms that I've never heard before? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I tell people, like, I didn't know that a debugger was a thing until like my second job out of college. They're like, why don't you just set a breakpoint? And I'm like, oh, what? And they're like, here, hold on. They came over and they're like, they set the breakpoint and then it stopped. And they're like, now you can just see like all of the variables. And I was like, what witchcraft is this? And then I burned it at the stake. But yeah, so like these are things that they don't teach you in like a regular course. So I love I love like these boot camps and the things that are kind of more focused on programming on languages, but still like you have the ability to like go from like one language to another, because like you're teaching JavaScript, and JavaScript is pretty safe right now, but that's just because like things like WebAssembly and whatnot hasn't caught on, because like JavaScript runs the web, but it's not going to forever.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then just while we're on the same topic of like how like things that we learn in school and outside of school, do you have any kind of like great advice for someone who's just learning how to code or just getting started with it, how they should get started?
So a lot of people like to go and like find books or find tutorials and like kind of go at it, like, and then you end up with like a cookie cutter thing that somebody taught you how to do. So I have to write tutorials as part of my job. And the thing about a tutorial is it is a very direct path from a start to a beginning. Like there is an expected ending to like what a tutorial gives you. And like, and if you wrote the doc well enough and everybody gets through it, like everybody has the same thing. What I think helps me with learning is like coming up with an idea and like just figuring out how to do it. So like, you know, I that's also part of my job, is like coming up with like fun little things. It's like, maybe I want to, you know, build something that allows me to share pictures of my dog. You know, it's similar to like Instagram. So I kind of have like a framework. I don't have to like add too much creativity, but it's like, how would I do that if I was a developer? And it causes me to like, instead of looking at tutorials, like learn to read like the reference documents so I can actually do the thing I want. And then like, I feel like it sticks with you a little better.
Mm-hmm. We have a question. Oh, never mind. That's not a good question. So Daniel, can you take care of it? But yeah, I know you mentioned just now that you have to like keep coming up with like cool ideas of tutorials and blocks that you write. How do you come up with any type of project idea? Like, what's your process?
Lately, what I've been trying to do is listen to feedback from our community. So a lot of the ways that like people ask us for help, ask us questions right now is through Intercom, and all of that gets piped into a Slack channel. And like I just kind of watch those questions. So sometimes I'll pop in and I'll answer them, but like most of the time we have Nate, who's our head of customer success, taking care of that. But I try to look for like common themes and things like that, and then also like kind of like what's hip and cool right now, which as an older person, it's hard for me to grasp that. And so I try to like mix those things together. So a lot of, you know, what I've created is, you know, seeing kind of pain points out there. So one week we had 3 different people ask the same question about attaching files using Amazon SES. And sorry for the Amazon people or the AWS people out there, but like the documentation isn't great to like read through. And so like it was really easy for me to like create a sample app that like grabbed a file from S3 and it did the encoding and did all the things that was needed to like send that out as an attachment through S3. And so I had like a nice some sample code. Oh my God. He just jumped up under the desk and smacked his head.
Oh no, I heard that. It was like a thud.
Yeah, he does that a lot. So like created that, and it might not be exciting, but like that's brought a lot of like great traffic to our site. So there's like that part of my job, but also like there are the things that I like to have fun with. I build a lot of like workshops that we give at hackathons and things like that. And so I like to use like different pieces of technology. So I've used like I like using Netlify. It's kind of like the easiest way for me to like get a site out there. And now they have Netlify functions, which is like a wrapper to Lambda functions. And then they even have like things where you can easily, do form submission. And so I built like this app that's like a form that submits and it passes it into Courier, and then you can kind of like design how you want that to be sent off. So you could integrate Slack and send it to a Slack channel. You could integrate SMS, email, and build like what those would look like and pull in the data. So there's things like that. But then there's like just like the fun things around Halloween. We were trying to do like a fun like like a socially distanced trick or treat app like on IoT. So like on a Raspberry Pi, I was going to like get one of those pumpkin buckets and like modify it so I could put like the little camera in there so we could have it sense when people came next to it, and then take a picture and then send that over into Slack with like a trick or a treat button. And so the thought was, this was like we like thought this out, but like we could not execute it because I couldn't get one of those buckets. It was, I don't know, I blame the pandemic. But like, if you hit treat, then it was supposed to like dispense candy, and if you hit trick, it was supposed to like do something scary.
Yeah.
But
the fact that getting the bucket was the problem
that was part of the problem. The other part was the little camera module for my Raspberry Pi just would not work, and like I love working with like IoT, but I have no patience for it. So.
Oh my God, that's so cool. I would love to see that, Aydrian. We need to see that this Halloween. Like,
yeah, we did it on our stream, and so like we went through like the code and like how we would do it, and we built like the Slack part using Courier. But like there's definitely lots of room for improvement.
Daniel's like, IoT is stressful. Ooh, Creature Next is here too. Hi guys. So I'm gonna switch tracks a little bit, talk more about like networking. Since you are a mentor, obviously you don't want like a stream of people just throwing questions at you and being like, tell me how to answer this, tell me how to do XYZ. In your case, like what do you think makes like a good professional relationship?
Oh, a good professional relationship. What
do you look for when you're going into like a mentorship program from the students?
So I've done a few of them. I worked with CUNY, which is the City University of New York, and I helped some students. The whole point was for them to work with open source. So the goal was for them to submit a pull request and get it accepted. And I had two students that I mentored. One was able to do the task, and the other one was not. So like it wasn't 100% for me. But I think it really has to do with like the student's willingness or not, like enthusiasm. So there's like a level of enthusiasm. So if you want to be there, if you want to do it, you're set up for a better start. And then also kind of your ability to deal with failure, because you're going to fail a lot before you succeed. And you have to know how to handle that and process that and move forward. So like the relationships that I form, I try to be very understanding. I try to talk things through. I try to take pauses. So like I can explain something and then you have to pause and you have to wait for feedback, because you never want to like over explain something, but also you want to try not to like under explain it. And so like as you work with somebody, you kind of learn like how to talk to them. So I mean it's learning for me as much as it is learning from them. Mentoring on something computer sciencey, something technology like is the same as like, having friends outside, regular friends.
No, I completely agree. I think just going into any type of program, everyone's too scared to kind of like admit that they're messing up, but that they're making mistakes. But that's kind
Uh-huh.
of the most important part in being with a mentor and like working with them, because they're there to help you get over those hurdles.
Mhm.
So you definitely have to be open to talking about it. Are
Let's
there
say
any
I make
notable?
mistakes all the time, and the
Yeah.
one that I like to talk about is when the PS3 came out. I was working for a company where we were contracting with Sony, and we worked on a project that allowed employees to pre-order the PS3. And this was before Stripe. This was back when like handling credit cards was awful, uh, and because of the code that I wrote, we actually locked out a whole bunch of debit cards, because debit cards are processed differently than credit cards, because whenever you put a hold on them, it actually removes money from
Oh my God.
from the bank, and you're not allowed to remove the money until the product ships. And so like I have released into production now, it was like for Sony's employees, like this monster of an app that just took people's money.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Are you sure that wasn't intentional?
Uh, I mean, I intentionally wrote the code according to what the doc said,
Yeah.
but you know, can't
That's
always trust
okay. I mean, you make
trust
mistakes
that.
and you learn from
Yeah,
it. Yeah. I'm glad that that's not going to happen again, though.
yeah. I don't deal with money anymore.
Sounds sus. Are there any notable people in tech that you've worked with, and what made that professional relationship kind of work for you, or something that you would be able to value over time?
Notable people that I've worked with. So I really enjoyed working with Mary Thingvall. Um, like I said, like during SparkPost, this was my first developer advocate job. So like I had an idea of things to do, but it wasn't really until like she came in and helped organize things and help like basically, teach me how, like the things that she has learned, because she had been working in developer relations longer than I have. Um, and so like that was really really great, and it's opened a lot of doors for me. I'm on the cover of her book as an avocado. I'm in a section of her book. I have read for her audio, the audio version of her book. So like I say Mary Thingvall, but she is not your traditional tech person. She started in she was a publicist for O'Reilly, and she worked her way into tech. And while she claims to not be techie, I've gotten her to do a lot of different tech things, like building websites. I got her to integrate SparkPost into something which is I think is pretty cool. So
I'm sorry. I just need
oh,
to share this and figure out which one you are.
I am to her left.
To her left.
Oh,
Is
and
it, wait,
she's the front one. Yeah.
okay. Is this you?
No, to her left. So on the other side.
Oh, this one?
Yeah, I look
Oh
bald,
my
but
God. Yeah. This
uh,
is the best thing I've ever seen.
yeah. So we worked as part of like the greatest DevRel team I've ever been on. So it was Mary, it was me, and then up there at the top with the moose antlers, that is Avi. And Avi is he was a student that we met at BitCamp. I always tease him and say he was like that annoying kid that would never leave our table. And I gave him some really good advice, and he ended up using it at my at SparkPost. And so he was like, I don't know if college is right for me. He has since gone back and completed it, done a lot of amazing stuff. He's like, I don't know if college is right for me. He's like, I know how to code. Like, why can't I just go do it? And I was like, you know what? You don't need to tell anybody that. I was like, you can go out and you can get an intern, because that's what's expected of you. You've got a year of college. Like, you're in the summer, you're going to find an intern. I go find an internship and make them love you and want to keep you. And so it was so funny, because I went down to the office for like one of our like my quarterly trips, and they're like, here are the new interns, and I was like, you
I know you.
Yeah, and gosh darn it if we didn't love him and keep him. And he worked there for a very long time. And he's now like launching his own product that's I think becoming wildly successful.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's
So all of
that's
that,
such
all
a
of those
nice
people.
That's I'm so sad. I want to be an avocado on someone's book cover now. I feel like that's on my bucket list officially. We do have a game, but before we go into the game, I just want to touch a little bit on serverless since that is what we're going to start learning next week. So could you tell us what is serverless and why is it such a valuable skill to have, if it is?
The joke is it's somebody else's computer. So to me, serverless is as kind of a traditional front end developer. Back when I was doing that kind of stuff, like all of our APIs and stuff were done in like C# and like all of these higher level languages, and then they were deployed, and somebody would write the code, and they would throw it over the fence to somebody else to deploy the code, and then you come back and you test the code, and I would integrate it with the stuff on the front end, and like it was just this process, and I'm like, oh, you return this like this instead of this, and like and it was just like, and I was like, okay, and we go through the process again, and what serverless has done is kind of given me the agency to like build that myself. So like it's abstracted out all of this stuff, so I can deploy it. So I'm just writing a function, and it gets deployed, and I don't have to worry about all of that infrastructure. So I guess the serverless part is you not having to worry about the infrastructure of running that code. Might be a hot take, but that's kind of how I see it. And what it's done is allowed me to like kind of expand what it is that I'm able to do. So not only am I building things with the front end where you would kind of run into problems, because if you wanted to call an API and it didn't have core support, then you couldn't call it from the front end. So you'd need to have some kind of server-side function to call it, and then you would pass that back and forth between your server and your front end. But like now I can just kind of like write it myself. So like I went from like not being able to do any back end to discovering that Node.js was a thing. And then I was writing like Express.js applications. So I was writing my own APIs that would be able to call these things and not have to worry about cores. And then I could like pass it to the front end. But then I had to worry about like, well, now what do I do with this Node application? Like, how do I deploy that? And I was able to do it. Like I used Heroku a lot. So that's when we got into what is Heroku considered? It's not function as a service, not infrastructure as a service. It's like application as a service or something like that. But like still, that was a lot of code that you had to write just to get like one endpoint. And so now we have, Lambda functions, we have Azure functions, like we have functions as a service. So you can write just the code for what you need in this function and execute that and not have to worry about like what's wrapping it, what's running it. Is it a container? I don't know. I hit the URL and it returns what I think because I wrote this handler code, which is a function.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very powerful tool, and I'm very excited to get the students to learn about it, build their own projects using it. It's cool because I'd never really heard about it in college until I started working with people that were already in like developer relations teams and stuff. So I'm glad that we're able to kind of bring that to the students this time around a little bit earlier in their stages of developing and coding. So this is the last segment that we have for our show today. It's the rapid fire round. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay, cool. Okay, what is your best or favorite coding language and why?
A lot of times I say JavaScript just because I use it so much, but I also really enjoy Python. I like scripting languages for some reason.
Awesome. Favorite API and why?
Favorite API? I mean, the Courier API, right? I'm trying to think like, so I really love the Poke API. So it's the Pokemon API because I use it in a lot of my projects. Because I can just pull back information about different Pokemon and like display it. And so I've done a lot of different like Pokédex and things like that. So I like
when
that.
You find the API that just like matches your interests.
Yeah. And I use that in combination with other APIs. So like I liked doing back in the day, I like doing like Twilio API because I could send SMS messages, but I could also receive them. And I had a lot of fun receiving messages and parsing those out and like kind of creating little bots.
Yeah, Twilio is insanely popular. I like hackathons and everything. Yeah. Hopefully one day Courier will be too. We're almost there.
We're working on it.
And then if you had to pick one between Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud, what's your go-to?
I'm going to pick whatever makes me not have to worry about what I'm using. So like I said, I like using it. Like whenever I write functions, I like using Netlify because it abstracts away like the fact that it's like AWS. I don't care that it's running in AWS. I don't want to have to deal with that configuration. So like in the same vein, like I could use the serverless framework and have it deploy to Azure or Google or AWS and not care. So like I'm not really a stickler for like which cloud I'm using. I just want it to be kind of as easy as possible for me. Like that's what I think is the beauty of like serverless is like I don't have to worry about that stuff. And I'm sure that there are people out there who worry about it. But I'm not one of them because
that's not my problem.
I'm a developer advocate and my stuff doesn't really have to last longer than like my demos.
I completely agree. Whatever makes your life easier. If you were a student in this camp, what would your final project be?
Oh man, that's a good question because I've at the mentor training, they kind of went through like some projects that were done last year or the last cohort, and like they're just so much more creative than me. I don't know what I would do, but it would probably have something to do with my dog.
That's fair. Atticus is a king. So what is the most valuable advice that you've ever received?
The most valuable advice. I don't remember where it's from, but I touched on it earlier where, like learn to deal with failure. Mm-hmm. Because you're going to fail a lot. Like back in the day when we were compiling things, like you would hit just all kinds of like compilation errors. Seg faults was it seg fault? Yeah, seg fault was the worst because it was the error that didn't tell you anything. It was just memory is bad somewhere. Something bad happened with memory somewhere. Good luck. And so you're going to fail a lot. It's going to get frustrating, but you have to like be persistent and not like it's not that bad. Like just like keep going. And the faster you can fail and get over that, like the better you're going to be.
Yeah, that's some solid advice right there. What's the worst advice that you've ever received and why?
I want to say like on the second week of a job, they're like, "Are you sure this is what you want to do?" I was like, "Well, you hired me."
Yeah, it's a little late now.
I'm trying to think. It's like you don't really remember the bad advice because I want to say like, bad advice was like, try this framework or try this thing, like, and it just like went bad. But I try not to dwell on the bad things, so I tend to forget them. Memory has been reclaimed.
That's good. That's some good advice right there. If you get bad advice, forget about it. Don't keep it. And last question. What is something that you want to be known for as a mentor?
Something I want to be known for. Like I want to be likable. Like I want people to feel comfortable like coming to me with questions, with problems. Not because I know everything, but because I can help you get to the solution. It might not come from me, but hopefully I can point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I completely agree. We're not trying to give you all the answers. That's what Google's for. We want to find mentors that kind of help you build the right skills that'll help you be good developers in the future as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Aydrian. It was really nice to get a chance to talk to you, know you better, introduce you to our students as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll see you next week with the actual program.
All right.
Bye.